Welcome to Starspeak with astrologer Maureen Richmond. Here's where you'll find the latest news on what's up with the heavens. Looking for the inner message from outer space? This is your place. So join me in welcoming your host, astrologer Maureen Richmond.
Welcome, star friends. I'm Maureen Richmond, and you're listening to Starspeak on the UNX Digital Broadcasting Network. This is your source for everything paranormal, supernatural, and ufological. Starspeak airs every Wednesday night at 7 Eastern, 6 Central, 5 Mountain, and 4 Pacific. If you're looking for the inner message from outer space, you're in the right place. So sit back now and get ready to enjoy a tour through the zodiac and to the stars beyond. Today's date is August the 30th, 2023. And in tonight's episode, I'll cover the following topics. First of all, we'll continue our discussion of the inner workings of astrology with an exploration of the influence of retrograde Mercury, which we're all experiencing right now. Next, it'll be feeling the energies with a rundown of recent and future planetary stations that are affecting us all. Next, the astrological influences behind 3 important historical UFO encounters. And finally, a look at long-term trends affecting everyone, especially as regards the destiny of the American nation, which is now undergoing its Pluto return. So next up is the inner workings of astrology. The inner workings of astrology. You all know that the astrological science is a way of understanding and describing the psycho-spiritual energies in consciousness that we all experience. It uses symbols and measurements within a circle, relying upon the sacred geometry that embodies the intentions of the great cosmic or creative mind. Using this system, we know a lot about what's going on around us. First of all, we know that our solar system is arranged in a concentric formation with the sun at the center and the orbits of the planets going round. Our planet is just one of the group, and from our perspective, things look a little bit different from time to time. Yes, they do. We can get in a certain relationship, spatial relationship with another planetary body, such that that other planetary body appears to cease its normal forward motion as measured in the zodiac, and instead stand still in the zodiac and then even appear to move backward in the zodiac. It's all a matter of appearance, but it's important. So the moment when that change takes place is called a station or a retrograde station. And then there's a period of retrogradation leading to yet another station when the other planetary body appears to stop making its backward motion in the zodiac and reassume forward motion. And that's yet another station, and it's called a direct station. Stations are points in time in our relationship of the Earth to other planetary bodies that are significant. Stations. We're going to be talking a lot about stations, planetary stations tonight, so it's a good idea to get that concept firmly in mind. Just recently, we had a station of the planet Mercury, which ceased its normal forward motion in the zodiac on August 23, which was just a week ago, and began to appear as though it were moving backwards in the zodiac. That's the retrograde motion. So last Wednesday, a retrograde station of Mercury occurred. So with that, we all entered into the formal retrograde Mercury period for this time around, which lasts through September 14, about 3 weeks, which is an average period of time for Mercury to appear in retrograde motion. That appearance develops about 3 times every calendar year, totaling to about 17% of the time that Mercury is seen in apparent retrograde motion. 17% of the time is not much. It's not even a fifth of the time. And therefore, it represents something that's different or unusual or a departure from the norm, a different way of experiencing life and a different way of processing information, conditions that change or surprise us because they are a little bit different than what we usually encounter. All of that is part and parcel of the retrograde Mercury experience, and we're all in it now. On the positive side, the retrograde Mercury period, which again this year runs from August 23, or I should say this fall, runs from August 23 through September 14. The retrograde Mercury period for this fall season is like any other retrograde Mercury period. It tends to draw consciousness within itself, to contemplate images, impressions, knowledge, experience from the past, and to gather wisdom as a result in that way. This time around, Mercury is retrograde in the sign of Virgo, which is a wonderful sign, and its function in the zodiac is to produce and manage clarity of detail, to organize information, to use the discerning powers of the mind for logical deduction, and thereby to establish order, organization, and efficiency in the world. So as Mercury retrogrades in this sign that concerns efficiency, exactitude, precision, oftentimes even measurement sciences and data information, as Mercury retrogrades in that sign, these are some of the topics and areas of life that we're naturally drawn to in a subjective way, or to reevaluate, or to go back and study what we were interested in once before. So this is an important influence for the moment here in August, in late August of 2023, is this retrograde Mercury period. You know, under retrograde Mercury, it's almost inevitable that we all go through a period of rethinking a position or reevaluating a plan or a concept. We have a second thought about a thing, an idea, or maybe we realize on the head end of the formal retrograde Mercury period that something we'd done or a decision that we had made sometime past perhaps needs some adjustment. Almost always with retrograde Mercury, therefore, it involves a period of stepping back and observing our own thoughts and what's going on around ourselves. And so a period of hesitation and maybe even doubt or reluctance to move ahead with prior plans. Sometimes that's precisely the correct thing to do. But we must remember that it's all got to do with an appearance resulting from the Earth's angle of view, in this case, on the planet Mercury. So it all comes back to the Earth's position within the solar system, which is our greater environment. It's all got to do with the energetics of being in that system. We're not alone in space. No, we're part of a family of planets going around our local star. And interestingly, we have psycho-spiritual or subjective relationships with those planets and what they represent. In this case, Mercury. Mercury represents the function of the mind. It has its roots in the ancient mythological figure of the Greek Hermes, or Hermes, who is the messenger of the gods, shuttling in between the immortals on Olympus and the human mortals below on planet Earth. That's an analog for the function of the mind, mediating between high intuitive abstract notions and the everyday mind in the physical world. So now our relationship with that function is undergoing an adaptation or a different arrangement, or perhaps even a closer look. Oftentimes, when Mercury is retrograde, people are attracted to the idea of the deep subconscious, the parts of the mind that have not really received a lot of attention, and therefore they may be attracted to meditation, trance, hypnosis, or other activities of that nature. The inward consciousness correlates to the retrograde or turning within period of Mercury. And this can work out very well as we use the energies of our different relationship with the Mercury function to look again at the contents of our own spiritual experience over what? Decades or maybe even lifetimes, as we turn within and view or contemplate a sequence of images like a movie running, and we see that playing out and understand the themes underneath the surface of life. So retrograde Mercury can be a very productive period in that way. On the outer world, sometimes it throws us a loop. It does. We find out some information that we received a long time ago isn't quite right, and we have to go back and figure out what the problem is, or changes in schedules or terms of agreements surprise us and catch us off guard. These are also common experiences under the influence of retrograde Mercury. So double check all your paperwork, and if you get an agreement, get a notification that seems to be erroneous, do check it out, because Mercury retrograde can bring to our attention facts, ideas, and necessary communications that we didn't know about before. Again, that period of time is August 23 through September 14. Next up, feeling the energies. Today, on Wednesday, August 30th, 2023, there are a lot of astrological energies that we're all feeling. Key amongst them are two powerful influences I'd like to highlight for you. First of all, there's one that's a planetary station, but not of Mercury. This one is of the planet Uranus. Uranus made a retrograde station on Monday, August the 28th. This is a very powerful astrological stimulus to consciousness. And it's so powerful that it's influential for easily a week total, a few days before the exact station and a few days after, maybe even longer than that, because all astrological influences operate on a bell curve. In other words, they begin to come into your awareness bit by bit, and then peak at exactitude, and then tail off as the exactitude fades into the past. So weaker and then stronger and stronger and stronger and reaching maximum intensity and then weakening and weakening and then finally passing out of the picture. This one over the course of at least a week. So that means that in the 20s of August and into the early days of September, the Uranus energy is very strong. You could say it another way. The influence in consciousness of the planet Uranus and its symbolic implications are very strong, with a peak around Monday, August the 28th. So what does this feel like? Well, Uranus is one of the most interesting archetypes astrologically because it's connected with the planet that was discovered, with the first planet that was discovered in modern times. In the late 1700s, Uranus was discovered, and it is therefore associated by the astrological lore with all things modern, innovative, technological, and trending toward the rapid evolution of humanity towards a higher state of knowledge, including mechanization and even computerized computation, or dare I say it, artificial intelligence. I'm not excited about artificial intelligence. I think there's already enough intelligence disseminated throughout the universe, and I like to use it from an intuitive standpoint. But you get my drift. Uranus is about the breakthrough and break away from the routine existence that humanity had existed under and the regime of deadening physical labor, and into the period of time when humanity had a running chance to at least get closer to the field of knowledge. And in the centuries that have followed the discovery of Uranus, of course, that really has happened. Uranus, in its impact in human consciousness, tends to accelerate evolution, speed it up, push it along, impel it, make it happen. It's an impatient, insistent energy. And it's very influential right now as I'm recording this program and as our listeners are tuning in live by video and by audio to think about our astrological situation. So we're all experiencing this right now. And again, with the greatest intensity right on Monday, August 28th, which was just a couple of days ago. So what we're all experiencing and feeling is an intensification of our own evolutionary processes. With that comes possibly a speeding up of the pace of life and the desire to, or the impulse to move ahead into all the exciting endeavors that we can think about as quickly as possible. It makes our schedules get crowded, in other words, with all our ideas, concepts, things that we want to get done, people we want to talk to, projects that need to be completed. It's an exciting time, but it's also a time that's disruptive of the old pattern that existed before. And so with this can come anxiety, irritation, some sleeplessness, also surprises and shocks as we discover the new conditions that we're currently facing or creating for ourselves, as the case may be. So that's one of the most powerful energies that we're experiencing right now. The Uranus retrograde station on Monday, August 28th. And even though it was a retrograde station, it is resulting from the energy of Uranus. And so it doesn't slow anything down, it speeds it up, because that's what Uranus is all about. It also will capitulate us or toss us into some of our prior forms of knowledge, but for the purpose of accelerating our own evolutionary paths and for accelerating the path of human evolution generally. That's one of the major developments right now. Remember, Uranus correlates to things which are different and unexpected, just like retrograde Mercury does. For a different reason, though. It does so because it appeared in human consciousness and was recognized by human consciousness at a time when a tremendous shift from the routine, deadly existence of humanity to a different situation. And along with it, all the advanced technologies that make that possible. So Uranus brings us an experience of the non-ordinary, those things which are not typical to our current existences, but something which is beyond or different or maybe a little bit challenging. Yeah. So that's really happening right now. And today, on Wednesday, August 30th, 2023, we're also experiencing a very interesting full moon, with the sun located at 7 degrees of Virgo and the moon at 7 degrees of Pisces, forming their exact opposition tonight at 8:36 p.m. Central Daylight Time. Yeah, that's the full moon moment when the sun and moon are at precise opposition, 8:36 p.m. Central Daylight Time, shortly after this show. So we're all experiencing the energies of the full moon, which is like all full moons in that it brings everything to a maximum point of intensity and to a head. Whatever was developed or begun, the new moon 2 weeks ago now rises to a crescendo of activity and recognition. Emotions are more intense. Our thoughts proceed more quickly. We're interested in a bunch of different things all at the same time. There's a potential for overload, with the new moon, too much of anything, too much of a good thing, in abundance. Everything rises to its maximum level in nature, in human experience, in feelings. Across the board, we have that with full moon. Of course, it's not a permanent state. It's like everything in nature, there's this constant alternation. So, but for a few hours or a couple of days, really usually about 3 days, centered right on the exact full moon, we really feel everything with great power, no matter what it is. If we're talking business, if we're talking personal relationships, or we're involved in creativity, we feel it with great intensity around the full moon. This full moon is important too because, as everybody knows, and there's a lot of coverage on this in the media, it's called a blue moon, and in some cases you will see coverage in the media calling it a super blue moon. So a blue moon is a situation in which there are 2 full moons during one calendar month. There's no overwhelming astrological or psychospiritual significance to that because the months of the civil calendar are in no way shaped or formed by astronomical or astrological realities. Now, our civil calendar once was formed and shaped on those very important energetic bases when the pagan calendar was in effect and the year began with the vernal equinox in the northern hemisphere. But that circumstance was changed by the Catholic Church back in history in order to get away from the pagan, or in order to weaken the prominence of the pagan sacred festivals. And so our calendar, our civil calendar, and the months are arranged within the flow of the year in no particular recognition of the points that the Earth encounters as it orbits the sun and therefore creates the seasons. So a month's time as we have it now is really an artificial creation. And there's no esoteric or occult influence in the fact that there are 2 full moons inside of what is now considered a month in the civil calendar. It's still a full moon though, and it's a very important full moon. This is a full moon that occurs when the moon is at perigee, closer to the Earth than usual. Not a whole lot closer, but a little bit closer. And that occurs because the moon's orbit is oval shaped and not perfectly round, not perfectly circular. And so that makes it look like the moon appears a little bit larger during that period of time. Not much. So for all these reasons, this is an important full moon. Now, I would say it's more important that this full moon engages the astrological position of Saturn. More important than any of that stuff I just told you now, I think. Saturn is currently located astrologically at 4 degrees of Pisces. The full moon occurs at the 7th degree of Pisces. 4th degree, 7th degree, only 3 degrees of zodiacal longitude in between those two, which is not much, and it means that the moon will be conjunct Saturn as it is full. So that brings the message of Saturn in Pisces into this full moon. Now, Saturn is in Pisces for about 2.5 years. That's an average period of time for Saturn to go through one of the signs of the zodiac. And that period of time is March of 2023 through February of 2026. That sounds like 3 years, but there's a little bit of time in there that Saturn moves on into the next sign, so that's why it looks that way. But starting in March of 2023, which is a few months ago now, Saturn moved into Pisces, so it's still securely there. And this particular full moon really brings out the energies and the meaning of Saturn's position in Pisces. So this is going to be a good lesson for us all, which we can watch and do our own little astrological scientific experiment. See for yourself what it means. Watch what themes are in your thinking and how you feel today, this full moon, and especially from the period about like right now through the next 4 to 5 hours, and make some notes and see if you can correlate it to the meaning of Saturn in Pisces. When Saturn is in any sign, it brings a focus to the functionality of that particular archetype. Pisces is a very important archetype in the astrological pantheon, just like Virgo is, its opposite sign. It symbolizes the opposite of all the things that Virgo does. Virgo is all about analytical precision and accuracy. Pisces is about unity, about the connectedness, about the erasure of differences, or the elimination of boundaries and divisions, and the creation of a blending and oneness. It's is a very creative sign and connects people on the positive side with the need for empathy and compassion. On the negative side, the Pisces archetype can be seen to express in circumstances and situations where structure is lacking. So positively and negatively, it can manifest. This full moon might well bring out all of those issues in certain situations. You can watch and see for yourself what you think it's doing. But I'll tell you, as for right now, we're really feeling this full moon period as it brings in the truths and messages of Saturn in Pisces. So that's an important energy that we're currently feeling. Now, as we look ahead to what we'll be feeling over the next few days and the week between now and the next Starspeak show, there are several things to bear in mind. And I'll talk to you about that after our break. So next up, I will continue and relate this to coming periods, or actually past periods, historical UFO encounters. So next up with that.
It's almost here, ladies and gentlemen. The UNX Network Year 2 anniversary at XCon 2023. XCon is being held this year from October the 30th to November 1st at the beautiful Oasis Hotel and Conference Center in Springfield, Missouri. Top speakers include host of America Unearthed, Scott Walter, plus Haley Ramsey, Sev Talk, UNX's very own Maureen Richmond and Dan Terry, Mindy Toutfest, Harriet McFeely, Forrest Crawford, and many more. And they're all coming to deliver new information on topics like UFOs, alien encounters, cryptids and ancient secrets, and real hauntings from the afterlife. Join us for the film premiere of A Haunting in Blue Hill. And don't miss the Mad Hatter Paranormal Halloween Bash, Banquet, and Costume Contest on All Hallows Eve, October 31st. So join us as we close out the 2023 conference season. Info and tickets are available now at unxnetwork.com. That's unxnetwork.com, and we'll see you there.
Welcome back. I'm Maureen Richmond, and you're listening to Starspeak on the UNX Digital Broadcasting Network. Hey, you know what? Astrological influences are all over the place in important UFO, UAP encounters. Yeah, they are. You know, we were talking about planetary stations earlier tonight, and planetary stations are frequently points in time when UFO and UAP encounters actually take place. So we've got a couple of things just like that coming up over the next week. Does that mean we might have some sightings? Sure, it does. Sightings happen all the time, and astrological energies are oftentimes the power of the moment during which such things are occurring. Coming up this weekend, and Monday, that's Sunday, September 3, and Monday, September 4. There's an interesting astrological interval. The planet Venus makes a direct station astrologically on Sunday, September 3, at the position of 12 degrees of Leo, ending a 7-week period of the retrograde motion of Venus, astrologically considered. Yes, Venus went retrograde in the love sign, the sign of creativity, romance, and celebrities, stars, royalty, entertainment, on July 22. Yeah, back in July, Venus went retrograde, and it's been retrograde since all that time, all the way through August, and finally now it's going direct on Sunday, September 3. Then on Monday, the planet Jupiter makes a station. Only this one is a retrograde station. So there's a direct station on Sunday and a retrograde station on Monday. They're coming right together, and both indicate a shift or change in trends, and also bring in the power of the individual archetypes involved. So that's going to be pretty powerful. At the same time, retrograde Mercury at 16 degrees of Virgo makes a perfect trine to Jupiter at 16 degrees of Taurus in the middle of all of that, creating a period of time, 2-day period of time, Sunday, Monday, September 3, 4, then we can look for some interesting developments. I think some might be very fortunate as well, due to that Mercury, Jupiter trine, which suggests that understandings between people, agreements, and contracts can be finalized in ways that are beneficial for all parties involved. So that's a very nice thing. Even though it's retrograde Mercury, it can work out very nicely. And then we have the Venus and the Jupiter influence. Both of those are considered benefics in astrology. Yes, astrology has its list of benefics and malefics. And in this case, it's just the benefics that are doing their thing. And so what can we expect? Well, just about anything, but something along the lines of peace, relaxation, good fortune. It's a holiday weekend in the United States. It's the Labor Day weekend, so people are going to take off from work and party and recreate anyway. But the astrological energies really point in that direction. In fact, they point in an even greater direction, and I'll share that with you in just a moment. And then further ahead in that week, the next major astrological influence occurs on Wednesday, which is a week from today, Wednesday, September 6th, when the Sun and retrograde Mercury conjunct at the 14th degree of Virgo, emphasizing and underlining all the retrograde Mercury effects that I talked about in the earlier part of this show. So that's Wednesday, September 6th. Watch for trends in mind and matter in your own personal world and in activities or events out and about to see just exactly what the influence of retrograde Mercury is all about. You can do your own scientific experiment on that and do some observation. Now, back in time, in March of 1983, in fact, March 17, 1983, there was a really important UFO encounter which took place over the Hudson Valley in New York State. It was part of a much larger wave or flap of UFO sightings, UAP sightings that went on for years and years. But March 17, 1983 was an important moment within that trend when a large boomerang-shaped craft hovered over an interstate for about 30 minutes, allowing for many people to witness this. March 17, 1983. Just a few days before, Uranus had turned stationary retrograde, just like it did on Monday, August the 28th, 2023. Again, that was Uranus stationary retrograde on March 14th. And 3 days later, that Uranus energy was still around, producing experiences with the unusual, the out of the ordinary, and the anomalistic in the form of a boomerang, unknown flying object. Now, the question is whether that unknown object was something secret technology owned by the United States government, the military, or aerospace firms on one hand, or actual extraterrestrial visitors from outer space on the other, is still unknown. But certainly there was an encounter with something out of the ordinary right after Uranus stationary retrograde. We're right there. Uranus made a retrograde station just 2 days ago, so we're still in that pocket. Venus is going to make a direct station in the next few days, this coming Sunday, and it did so right around yet another important UFO UAP encounter. This one occurred in the early days of World War II on February 25, 1942, and it's called the Battle of Los Angeles. This is a controversial event, the exact nature of which is not known. Some historians think it was nothing other than an overreaction on the part of the U.S. military. Others feel that there really was something in the skies that did not belong to any of the world's military. Whatever the case may be, it did occur right after a Venus station. And we're going to have one in just a few days yet again. Battle of Los Angeles happened because it was thought that Japan was attempting to invade or bombard our West Coast. So on that particular early morning of February 25, something was seen in the skies that alerted the military, and they blamed a tremendous amount of live fire at it, but they never shot anything out of the sky, even though people thought they saw crafts up there. And there's one photograph that a particular expert analyst says reveals an unknown craft not of earthly origin. So that whole encounter happened on February 25, 1942, following the Venus station on February 23rd. So as you can see, that Venus station energy was still around a few days after exactitude. Yes. Venus is the peacemaker of the zodiac. It has its roots in the Greek goddess of love, Aphrodite. Venus is the Romanized or Latinized form of that same mythological or astrological archetype. And it's got to do with the mollification of the human nature, with the pacification, with relaxation, even with satiation. Too much of a good thing, you know. But it's a mild energy, Venus, in most cases. And so what's all that about? It could easily have been a diplomatic mission to perhaps divert humanity from its course in World War II. It's a thought. Now, we also have a Jupiter station coming up in just a few days, and a Jupiter retrograde station, just like what we'll have in a few days, was associated with yet another important historical UFO encounter. This one occurred August 12th through 13th, the year 1975, at Holloman Air Force Base in Alamogordo, New Mexico. During that period of time, an Air Force officer who was out in the desert observing a meteor shower saw something else in the sky. In fact, an unknown flying object that was about 50 feet in diameter at a distance of about 300 feet from the witness. And this craft was seen to descend from the sky and hover for quite some time, allowing the witness to identify the fact there were humanoid creatures moving around inside the craft and visible through windows in the craft. The witness also experienced interference with the electrical functioning of his vehicle during this period of time. His car stopped working, and in later hypnotic trance, he was able to retrieve the fact that he had been taken into the craft and examined by the occupants of the craft. He even manifested some physical effect from this. So this followed a Jupiter station, preceded a Jupiter station by just a little bit less than 24 hours. Jupiter turned stationary retrograde, like it will do this coming Monday, on August the 14th, very close to the period of time that this Air Force officer experienced this UFO encounter. So as you can see, these Jupiter stations are pretty powerful. These stations of planets in general are very powerful. Many astrologers feel that the stations of planets are the strongest possible application of astrological energies. Again, they're so strong that they are present a little bit before and after the exactitude, usually for about a week or more, centered right on the day of exactitude. Keep your eyes open because we've got 2 planetary stations coming during the next week, one on Sunday and one on Monday. And they are of the type that in the past were associated with very important historical UFO, UAP encounters. Next up, long-term trends, especially America's Pluto return. I'm Maureen Richmond, and you're listening to Starspeak. Thank you for being here. All of us are interested in the long-term destiny of planet Earth. And we're all interested in our own personal experiences, that's for sure. But we're interested in the collective destiny of humanity too. The loving star friends of our planet don't want to see nature disrupted. They want the world to be a beautiful place for their descendants to enjoy. And we all want a world where the best values of life can be experienced and lived. We have high hopes for humanity. Our high hopes are often dashed under the cruel wheel of appearances that we see around us throughout the planet, through governments, through corporate practices, and who knows what, It's very difficult sometimes to hold on to the positive vision that we have for ourselves and for each other. And so the question naturally comes up, what in the world, or are there any astrological influences that are contributing to the trends that we see around us? Here in the United States, our country is struggling with a very large homelessness problem, with a crisis in availability of affordable housing, even for people who are not at the lowest income levels. It's quite a problem. Economic inequities are evident wherever one looks. Many people feel we also have a serious crisis with urban crime and with governmental overreach, as well as ethical demise and corruption in government, bribes being taken, and corporate interests hijacking the legislative processes, as well as executive proclamations. Some people even feel that it is so severe that the United States is actually falling apart. One of my closest associates has said that it appears that anarchy is imminent. So we ask the question, what astrologically could bring this about? And there's definitely a factor that could. And it's the fact that the United States of America, which was born at the Declaration of Independence on July 4th, 1776, is almost 250 years old. And it only takes about 248 years for Pluto to go around the entire solar system and hence return to the place that was at the time any given event occurred, or in this case, a nation was born. In other words, the United States is currently experiencing its Pluto return. Let me say that again. The United States of America is currently experiencing its Pluto return. This only happens once every 248 years, a period of time that is curiously similar to the 250-year empire cycle accepted by some conventional historians. It's a thing in history, the 250-year empire cycle. And it posits that on the basis of research of previous empires in history, that empires generally last about 250 years before they begin to collapse, implode, and disintegrate. Well, that 250-year mark is the Pluto return. So there's an exact correlation between the measurement of the empire cycle in conventional history and the measurement of a Pluto return cycle in astrology. There's a match. You can't get away from it. It happens to coincide very closely. So what is the nature of a Pluto return? By the way, no one living will be having a Pluto return. Well, it intensifies the impact of the astrological archetype of Pluto, which is the god of death and rebirth. You heard me correctly. The god of death and rebirth. Death and rebirth is modeled on the Greek god Hades, who was the region of the underworld where souls went after an incarnation was concluded to meditate on their experience and prepare themselves for the next step ahead in evolution, which generally understood in the Greek theology was reincarnation. So Pluto is the god that presides over periods in time of destruction, disintegration, death, in preparation for resurrection. Now, when the United States of America was proclaimed into existence on July 4, 1776, Pluto stood at 28 degrees Capricorn astrologically. Pluto has been passing over and back and forth and over that position since March 2022 and will continue there through December 2023 with its forward and direct motion, which is natural to the outer planets. In other words, the entirety of the years 2022 and 2023 are strongly conditioned by the fact that the United States of America is going through its Pluto return, a death and rebirth phase. And it's really true. It's not a joke. It's not an overstatement either. And it's also not anything that we individually, personally can know, because human lifespans are not 248 years long. So we don't have anything to compare it to within our personal experience. Now, anyone who's ever experienced a Pluto transit to one of their own individual positions in their natal chart might have a pretty good idea of what this is all about. And if you're curious about whether or not you've experienced such a thing and when it was, you need a professional astrological reading, which you can get from me at starsong1208@gmail.com. You can find out those dates and do your own analysis and thinking about what the effect of Pluto really is. But as we look around us and what the United States of America is going through right now, we can simply learn about what a Pluto return is by reading the Book of Life. It's all around us right now. Most authorities agree that the American economy is in some version of recession right now. So that gives you an idea of what a Pluto transit, and specifically a Pluto return, will do. Many people feel that our federal government is failing us in various ways. That's a result or artifact of the Pluto return. But it is not permanent. It's dramatic, it's disheartening, it's real, and it's quite likely to dismantle or disassemble aspects of our federal structure here in the United States of America. Yes, it's likely to do that. What will remain? We'll have to see. But the energies do shift. The intensity, the greatest intensity of this passage occurs during the years 2022 and 2023. After that, Pluto will move out of that 28th degree of Capricorn and on into the sign of Aquarius, doing so in late January 2024 and staying there about 7 months, and it will generate a very different theme that we'll all be able to see. Pluto will then retrograde back into the 29th degree of Capricorn and be pretty close to our 28th degree Capricorn nationally, but not exactly there, so not as strong. And finally, Pluto will enter Aquarius permanently in late November 2024 and stay there for 18 years. And at that point, a different theme of national experience, or for the people remaining in what was the territorial entity of the United States, will be generated. This has been Starspeak with Maureen Richmond, and I thank you for tuning in. I'll be back next week with more to share about the astrological energies that we all need to know about in navigating our experience here. Thank you so much for watching. I'm signing out for the UNX Digital Broadcasting Network.